r/AskReddit. Uber drivers of Reddit. What is the most unforgettable conversation you've had to eavesdrop on? Women always talk about dong sizes to their girlfriends. From what I gather, anything below 5 inches is too small and over 8 is scary. So if you are between that 5-8 range, you're fine. Edit. Gold for telling guys their average penises are just fine. LOL. This comment is surprisingly reassuring. For you maybe. Found the guy with a 13-inch dong. Magnum dong. So how below 5 inches is it? Wow, this feels like the time I was just tall enough to ride the roller coasters. r/slight self-harmwards. Never felt so confident after checking Reddit. Look at these people pretending like they have a dong bigger than 5 inches. Bro, what are you talking about? I'm packing 69 inches down there and that's the truth. 6-inch squad. As a woman I can confirm. Shit. Currently sitting at 6.33 repeating, so I'm good. 6.333 repeating, of course. I'm 98% sure she was a hooker. Picked her up from one hotel and was bringing her back to another. She was on the phone and I only caught it cause her voice dropped suddenly and I automatically started paying attention. I normally just play Irish folk music and stay quiet, not listening. She said he was too big and she was going to need a diaper for a few days. I can only assume anal leakage after taking one bigger than she expected. What? Your username might get you a little more than you bargained for on this one. I once picked up 2 gals and a guy presumably from dinner. They all say in the backseat, which I thought was weird at first, but I decided they had been drinking and just didn't realize it. Fast forward to 5 minutes later. The 2 girls started kissing and I was watching the whole thing go down on my rear view mirror. My first thought was, oh, it's a lesbian couple and their gay friend. Nope. Then he got in on the action and I couldn't keep my eyes on the road cause I was basically watching softcore porn go down in my backseat. Not to mention they started detailing what they were gonna do when they got home. I had a very confused boner after I dropped them off. How was it confused? Sounds like a very logical boner. He's a professional. A dude was on the phone to someone talking about the time he shat himself, with great detail. Another would have been the time I'm pretty sure 2 pool passengers hooked up. Lots of flirting and she suggested he jump out at the same place she did. Was the first one George Brett? Could have been Ted Nugent. Guy needed a ride from a restaurant to the motel he was staying in while his house was being rebuilt after a fire. The dude spent the whole 15-minute drive trying to convince me that he didn't burn down his house for the insurance money. Just started defending himself out of the blue as if I'd asked, hey buddy, did you burn down your house for the insurance money? Weird. He totally burned his house down for the insurance money. I just smiled and nodded the whole drive. But he said he didn't. Are you saying he was lying? Damn it. Michael, how much clearer can I say there's always money in the banana stand? Not a conversation, but I picked up 2 people from a bar. They started making out in the backseat and I've never heard anything like it. Their kissing was like 10,000 seals clapping their hands in unison. I was focused on driving and it was dark so I couldn't see what the hell they were going back there. But I seriously thought they were both slapping their own hams. Woke my husband up laughing at this. Had a very drunk passenger make a booty call on speaker. He failed miserably and it was really hard not to laugh. Crazy thing is, I was thinking about my Uber experiences today, so I feel obliged to share this. I don't know how to drive, so I used to use Uber pretty frequently. Like every day for about 4 months frequently. Anyway, one night I get into a disagreement with my I get an Uber. It's around 1 AM so I'm ready to go home and sleep. The driver was surprisingly chatty and I'm fighting back tears the entire time until I crack and tell him I'm sorry, I can't have a conversation right now, I'm very upset. He's genuinely concerned and asks me if I wouldn't mind sitting up front with him. I oblige because I feel so sad. First serious disagreement. First relationship, of course. For the next 45 minutes he proceeds to talk me through everything, patiently listening and reminding me everything is gonna be okay. Before he dropped me off he asked if he could give me a hug. Said he had 3 daughters himself and wouldn't like to imagine them crying in an Uber like me. The best part, his name was Jesus. I'll never forget. It was a small gesture on his part, but it meant and still means the world to me. Anyone would have seen me and just brushed me off, but he really went out of his way to make sure I was okay. Not a driver but a passenger taking a long, late night ride alone. Driver misses the exit to my place and ends up taking the next one. As we are passing some random hotel, he asks me if I've ever stayed there before and then goes on to tell me about how it's the hotel that he takes his girlfriend to and the details of what he does to her there. Earlier in the ride he told me he had a wife and kids. I didn't ride in an Uber for months after that. Christ, did you report him? Please report him if you haven't already. I didn't. He would have known it was me and known exactly where I live. Yeah, good point. Had an hour and a half drive from Pasadena to Santa Monica. An old woman, probably 85 plus years, was talking to me about her children and grandchildren and asking me about my family. The entire ride flew by and I didn't even realize. My grandma had recently passed away at the time, so I really cherished talking to this woman. Gave me a hug goodbye and was just a wonderful person. Don't take your grandparents for granted, people. You will miss them when they are gone. Granddad died 2.5 months ago. Can relate so much to this. Wholesome. I was the passenger and it wasn't an eavesdrop, as the driver was very openly telling me. He was a bit older. Somewhere around mid to late 40s would be my guess. He told me how his ex lived in the suburb right next to where he was taking me, and that when she changed her relationship status on Facebook to "It's complicated," he reacted by sending her pictures of another woman giving him head. Then he went to the casino with his son one night and met a Vietnamese girl and told me in great detail how ducking great Vietnamese birds are in bed. He went on to describe how he went to Vietnam for a few weeks to continue seeing the girl and that now they were in a long distance relationship. Then he spoke about how shit Uber is and that he hates the company. When he dropped me off at home, he left me with this: "Thanks for the trip, mate. I'm gonna sit here for a bit and have phone sex with the missus." 4 girls. One mentions, "Hey, remember that night you found that bag of meth in the lady's cooch? Oh god. That was horrible." Turns to me. "I'm a nurse at the women's jail." I read that as couch at least 4 times before figuring out why that was so bad. For context, the local public transport system in my city is called TransLink. I picked up 2 dudes and one sat in the front, the other in back, so it was kind of hard not to overhear their conversation. They were having a really intense conversation about front seat guy's brother who had just come out to his family over Christmas as being transgender. The front seat guy was fine with it, but his parents were not, and it sounded like a pretty tense situation. His friend, the guy in the back seat, was sympathetic, saying, "Yeah, man, that's heavy. I hope it all works out." You could tell there was a lot of emotional tension in the car. Then, after few moments silence, the friend piped up, "So does that mean she gets a discount with TransLink now?" The guy in the front seat burst out in laughter. Hero, Vancouver. Brisbane, Australia. I just realized they're both called the same thing in both cities, even down to the same letter capitalization. One sometimes gets the other's customer complaint on Twitter. Not eavesdropping, but the most unforgettable conversation took me to meet Elon Musk. Sort of. I was driving back SpaceX rocket scientists from a bar that the company bought out for a night in Cape Canaveral. They were there to watch the rocket launch, in which the first stage booster would land back at the launch pad after detaching from the main payload capsule. This was their first attempt about 6 months after their first attempt, which failed in April 2015. While SpaceX has been successful with this process a handful of times since then, this particular launch marked the first time in history that a first stage booster landed successfully after launching a rocket into outer orbit. ULA did something similar, but it was in low Earth orbit, so science junkies don't count it. I watched the whole thing live, and indeed it was beautiful. And at the end I figured I'd help taxi around some people I was sure probably Ubered to the event in the first place. Hundreds were gathered. I usually chat with passengers to help pass the time and maybe learn something new. And I was surprised by the first SpaceX engineer I picked up, who told me about the bar and how the workers had gathered to watch the launch. After I dropped them off at a hotel they were staying at, I figured there'd be more rides and made my way back to the bar, and indeed continued to shuttle several more scientists back to their hotel. After my 3rd or 4th ride, One of the scientists said if you want to see Elon he's at the bar too hanging out, and in my head I was like oh my god. And so I dropped these guys off and drove back to the bar fast. I walked in right at 2 AM just as the bartender was starting to close up. I asked the bartender if I could get a drink before looking for Elon, but he appropriately said no. I said alright and turned around, and about 15 feet from the bar I saw Elon laughing with 4 or 5 of his presumably employees, and I stared, gawked really, for a brief moment. As much as I wanted to, I didn't walk up to him because I figured he wouldn't really care for my 21yo self at the time, and that's okay. Still the best night of Uber. Edit. More words formatting. A woman in her early 20s, explaining to her daughter, who must have been 4 or younger, that daddy won't be coming back home because he tried to run from the cops by jumping in the river in the middle of December and froze to death. Could tell the girl was too young to really comprehend the whole thing, and the mom kept trying to explain that water was too cold and he got too tired to move and sunk in the water. The girl kept asking why he jumped in the water if it was cold, and the mom kept trying to explain and just ugh, comma. 4-year-olds are incredibly smart but so dense at times. My dog passed last year and my 4-year witnessed her declining health. Every few weeks she asks if Cookie will be coming home soon. I give her the rundown. Tell her Cookie is dead. She acknowledges the dying part but doesn't grasp that it's permanent. I can't imagine having to explain the death of a parent though. Shit, that's just depressing. I was actually the passenger, and it was the driver talking in his earpiece. Driver looked to be in his 40s and he was apparently on the phone with a mistress, behind his wife's back. Some juicy snippets I heard, not the exact phrases though. My wife saw your message last night. I told her your colleague. Good thing you didn't send me any hearts on that message. I'll tell my wife I'm busy tomorrow and she'll have to bring my son to the doctor herself. I booked our tickets to another country already. Let's go have fun. I told my wife I'm going for a fishing trip with my friends. I can't leave her so easily. We have a son already. Let me think of an excuse. I hate it when my sick kid gets in the way of me cheating on my wife. Ever thought about getting a DNA test? Sounds like my first husband. Fake trip and all. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope someone else is treating you better.